The observation deck was silent except for the hum of the star engines. I stood 3 paces behind Ambassador Chun, hands clasped, watching the Valkyrian Queen through the transparent aluminum barrier. She was massive, 9 feet of chitinous armor, her arms moving in calculated gestures as she addressed the assembled diplomats. Her voice carried like distant thunder, each word precise and weighted. I had studied the Valkyrians for 6 months before this assignment. Read every cultural brief. Memorized every protocol. But nothing prepared me for the reality of her presence. Queen Thessera commanded the room without raising her voice, without threatening, without even moving much. She simply existed, and existence bent around her. "The treaty stands as written," she said, her primary arms folded across her chest, while her secondary hands gestured at the projection hovering between us. "Humanity may establish 3 research stations in the outer territories. No more." Ambassador Chen's jaw tightened. I could see it from where I stood. We needed 5 stations minimum. The mineral surveys demanded it. But Chun was a professional. She nodded slowly. "Your Majesty is most generous." "We accept these terms." The Queen's compound eyes shifted, not much, just a flicker. In my briefings, I'd learned that meant surprise. She had expected negotiation, perhaps even conflict. Chen's immediate acceptance had thrown her. "You do not bargain?" The Queen's mandibles clicked softly. "We bargain with equals," Chen said. "You have made your position clear. We respect strength when we encounter it." I watched the Queen's posture shift. Her secondary arms uncrossed. In Valkyrian body language, that was significant. It meant consideration. Reevaluation. The meeting concluded 20 minutes later. As the diplomats filed out, I remained at my post, waiting for Chen. The Queen was speaking with her own advisors now, a cluster of smaller Valkyrians who moved around her like moons orbiting a planet. One of them gestured toward me. The Queen turned. Our eyes met across 30 feet of deck. She said something in her native tongue. Her advisors scattered. Then she walked toward the barrier, each footfall deliberate and heavy. I felt Chen's hand on my shoulder, a warning or reassurance, I couldn't tell which. The Queen stopped at the barrier. This close, I could see the scars on her carapace. Dozens of them. Some looked ceremonial. Others were clearly from combat. She had earned her throne through strength, the report said. Defended it 3 times against challengers who thought her age made her vulnerable. "You are the observer." Her voice was quieter now, but no less powerful. "Yes, Your Majesty." Junior Analyst Marcus Webb. "You watch me differently than the others." My mouth went dry. Had I broken protocol? Stared too long? Chen's fingers tightened on my shoulder. "I apologize if I gave offense, Your Majesty. I did not say it was offensive." Her mandibles shifted, not aggression, but something else. Curiosity, maybe. "Your ambassador speaks well. She understands power. But you see something else when you look at me." I couldn't lie. Not to those eyes. "I see strength, Your Majesty. The kind that doesn't need to prove itself." The Queen's secondary arms rose slightly. In my peripheral vision, I saw her guard shift. Chen's grip became painful. "Elaborate. You could have demanded more concessions from us. You hold every advantage in this sector. But you offered fair terms instead." "That's not weakness. That's confidence. You're strong enough not to crush us." Silence stretched between us. Somewhere behind the Queen, one of her advisors made a sharp chittering sound. A warning or a comment, I couldn't tell. The Queen's primary hand rose. She placed it against the barrier, palm flat. The claws, each as long as my forearm, gleamed under the deck lights. "Come closer, Marcus Webb." My heart stopped. Chen's hand fell away from my shoulder. Your Majesty, protocol dictates. Chen started. I know your protocols, Ambassador. The Queen's eyes never left mine. I am asking your analyst to step forward. Unless he fears me? Every instinct screamed danger. The barrier was rated for ship-to-ship weapons fire, but her claw tips were inches from my face. If she struck, if she even twitched wrong, but that wasn't fear in her posture. I had spent 6 months learning to read Valkyran body language. This was something else entirely. I stepped forward. 1 pace. 2. Until I stood directly before her, separated only by 3 inches of transparent metal. This close, I could see her breathing, the slow expansion and contraction of her thorax, the minute adjustments of her mandibles. She smelled like ozone and something mineral, like stone after rain. You are afraid. It wasn't a question. Yes, Your Majesty. But you came anyway. You asked me to. Her secondary hands moved, a gesture I didn't recognize from any briefing. Behind her, the advisors went completely still. Even Chen had stopped breathing. The Queen's voice dropped to something almost gentle. Tell me, Marcus Webb, why did you truly accept this assignment? Humans fear us. Your military briefs call us hostile, unpredictable, dangerous. Yet you volunteered to stand in a room with me. My training said to deflect, to use diplomatic language. But something in her tone demanded honesty. Because fear based on ignorance is easy. Understanding takes courage. And I wanted to understand. The Queen's hand pressed harder against the barrier. For a moment, I thought she would break through. Then she pulled back, her 4 arms spreading wide in a gesture my briefings had never covered. Ambassador Chen, she said, not looking away from me. I am revising our agreement. Humanity may establish 5 research stations. Your analyst has earned this concession. Chen's shock was audible. Your Majesty, we cannot accept such generosity without. You can. You will. Now the Queen did turn, fixing Chen with those compound eyes. Because I choose to give it. Is that not how strength works? She walked away, her guards falling in around her. At the doorway, she paused. Marcus Webb will attend tomorrow's cultural exchange. Alone. Then she was gone, and I was left standing at the barrier with my heart trying to punch through my ribs and Chen staring at me like I'd just negotiated peace with a supernova. What? Chen said carefully. Just happened? I honestly had no idea. The cultural exchange was supposed to be a formality. 10 minutes of traditional greetings, maybe some ceremonial food sharing, then back to the ship. That was what the schedule said. What Chen had reluctantly agreed to after 3 hours of arguing with our security team. But when I arrived at the Queen's private chambers, escorted by 2 guards whose armor looked like it could deflect starship cannons, I knew immediately that nothing about this would be formal. The chamber was vast. Circular. The walls were carved with what looked like historical scenes. Valkyran warriors in combat, ships crossing stars, queens raising their arms in triumph. The ceiling was transparent, showing the gas giant we orbited in shades of amber and rust. The Queen sat in the center on a raised dais. Not a throne, just a simple platform with cushions that looked handmade. She wore less armor than yesterday. I could see the softer segments between her carapace plates, the slight asymmetry that suggested old injuries healed imperfectly. You came. She sounded surprised. You invited me, Your Majesty. Many would have said excuses. Diplomatic illness. Schedule conflicts. Her mandibles clicked in what I had learned was amusement. Your security chief argued for 2 hours that this was a trap. Commander Reeves takes her job seriously. As she should. Sit, Marcus Webb. There were cushions arranged before the dais. I lowered myself onto one, acutely aware that I was alone with the most powerful being in 3 systems, and that every diplomatic protocol I'd ever learned said this was insane. The Queen gestured with a secondary hand. A servant appeared, smaller, younger, wearing simple robes, carrying a tray with 2 cups. The liquid inside was luminescent blue. "Teresh," the Queen said. "A traditional drink. Non-toxic to humans. I had my physicians verify this." The servant offered me a cup. I took it, waiting until the Queen lifted hers before drinking. It tasted like honey mixed with electricity. My tongue tingled. "You meant what you said yesterday," the Queen said after a long silence. "About understanding." "Yes, Your Majesty." "Then I will help you understand. Do you know how I became Queen?" I knew the official story. "You challenged Queen Valessa 16 years ago. Defeated her in ritual combat. That is what the records say. It is not what happened." The Queen set down her cup. "I was Valessa's primary advisor, her closest friend. When the challenger came, Lord Cathus, young and strong and eager, I saw that she would lose. Age had weakened her. So I invoked an ancient right. I fought in her place. My training hadn't covered this. You saved her life. I took her throne. That was the law. If you fight the challenge, you claim the victory. Valessa lived, but she lost everything. Her title, her authority, her purpose." The Queen's voice had gone flat. "She died 3 months later. Grief," the physician said. "I say I killed her as surely as if I had used my claws." I didn't know what to say. This was vulnerability. From a queen. From a Valkyran. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because yesterday you saw strength and restraint. I want you to understand the cost of that strength." She leaned forward. "Every day, I could demand more from the smaller races. From humanity. I could take systems, resources, territory. My people would follow me. They respect power. But I remember Valessa's eyes when I wore her crown for the first time. I remember what unchecked strength destroys. So you choose mercy. I choose wisdom. They are not the same thing." Her secondary hands gestured at the carved walls. "These are our victories. 10,000 years of conquest. Do you know what they cost us? We were once 100 billion strong. Now we are 7 billion. We won every war and nearly destroyed ourselves doing it." I looked at the carvings with new eyes. In every victory scene, the Valkyran warriors were fewer. The ships smaller. The celebrations more muted. "You're trying to save your species," I said slowly. "By making peace. By making alliances. By learning from races like yours who value cooperation over dominance. But my people do not understand this yet. They see me granting concessions to humans and think I am weak. 7 challengers have come in the past year alone." She gestured at her scars. "These are the price of my restraint." I thought of her standing at the barrier yesterday. The absolute control in every movement. "You're fighting a war on 2 fronts. Against external enemies and internal doubt." "Yes." The word was heavy. "And yesterday, you gave me a weapon I have never had before. A human, a member of the race my advisors say we should dominate, looked at me and saw strength and mercy. If I can show my people that humanity respects wisdom over simple power, perhaps they will begin to understand." The implications crashed into me. "That's why you gave us the extra research stations. Not as a gift. As proof. As both. You earned them with your honesty. But yes, I will use this. I will tell my council that humanity recognizes true strength. That we gain more through measured generosity than through threats." Her eyes fixed on me. "I am asking you to be a symbol, Marcus Webb. It is not fair. It is not safe. But I am asking anyway." My throat was tight. What happens if I say no? Nothing. You return to your ship. The treaty stands as revised. But my people continue to see humans as weak, as prey. And, eventually, someone will challenge me who I cannot defeat. And the new queen will not share my philosophy. So the alternative is war. The alternative is annihilation. Mine or yours? Perhaps both. She stood, towering over me. I am not asking you to lie. Only to continue doing what you did yesterday. See us clearly. Speak truth. Help my people understand that there is strength in alliance. I set down my cup with shaking hands. This was so far beyond my training, beyond my rank, beyond anything I had prepared for. I was 28 years old, a junior analyst. I wrote reports about trade patterns and cultural norms. But I looked up at Queen Thessera, at her scars, at her steady gaze, at the weight she carried, and I thought about what strength really meant. I'll do it, I said. I'll help however I can. The queen's mandibles spread in what I was learning to recognize as a smile. Then tomorrow you will address my council, and you will tell them exactly what you told me. That restraint is strength, that I am not weak for choosing peace. She extended one primary hand toward me, an offering, a partnership. I reached up and placed my hand against hers. Her palm dwarfed mine. Her claws curved around my wrist without quite touching. She could have crushed every bone with a thought. Instead, she held perfectly still, and let me feel the warmth of her chitin. "Thank you, Marcus Webb," she said quietly. "You may have just saved both our species." I hoped she was right, because when I left her chambers an hour later, after discussing plans and strategies and carefully rehearsed speeches, I saw the way her guards looked at me, the way the servants whispered. Word was already spreading. The human who stood before the queen, who earned her favor. Some would see it as she intended, proof of wisdom and strength. Others would see it as weakness, as betrayal. And I had just agreed to walk into a room full of Valkyran nobility and defend the queen's choices. Commander Reeves was going to kill me if the Valkyran hardliners didn't do it first. The council chamber was designed to intimidate. I realized this the moment I walked through the doors. High ceilings that made voices echo. Tiered seating that forced the speaker to stand in a pit while the council loomed above. Lighting that came from overhead, casting harsh shadows. I stood in that pit now, looking up at 50 Valkyran nobles arranged in a semicircle. Queen Thessera sat highest, directly ahead. Her expression was unreadable. Lord Cathus, the challenger she had mentioned, now serving on her council, sat to her left. He was younger than the queen but massively built, his carapace darker, his scars fewer but deeper. He watched me the way a predator watches prey. "The human will speak," the queen said. No preamble. No introduction. I had rehearsed this. Spent all night memorizing the cultural touchstones, the rhetorical strategies, the precise words that would resonate with Valkyran values. But standing here, feeling the weight of their attention, everything I had planned evaporated. So I told the truth instead. "My name is Marcus Webb. 3 days ago, I was nobody. A junior analyst whose job was to watch and record. I had no authority to speak, no power to negotiate. I was furniture. I looked around the chamber, meeting eyes where I could. But Queen Thessera asked me a question, and I answered honestly. And because of that honesty, my people gained concessions we did not expect. Not through threats, not through military power, but because your queen chose to reward truth with generosity." Murmurs rippled through the council. Cathus leaned forward. "You speak of generosity as strength," he said. His voice was granite grinding on granite. "But generosity implies excess. Resources given away freely. How is this strength when it leaves us with less? Because it leaves you with allies instead of enemies. Because humanity now has reason to defend Valkyran interests. Because next time someone threatens your borders, we will remember that you treated us fairly. I paused. Strength that crushes creates resentment. Strength that uplifts creates loyalty. Pretty words, Cathus said. But your species is weak. You have no carapace. Your ships are inferior. Your weapons barely scratch our shields. Why should we seek your loyalty when we could simply take what we want? Because you already tried that. For 10,000 years. I gestured at the walls, where more historical carvings stretched. And it nearly destroyed you. The murmurs became shouts. Several council members rose from their seats. The Queen's secondary hand sliced through the air, a call for silence. It took a full minute for the chamber to quiet. You overstep, human. Someone called from the upper tiers. You dare lecture us on our own history? I dare speak truth. That's what your queen asked of me. I turned to look at Thessera. She gave the smallest nod. Your history is written on these walls. Every victory, yes. But also every cost. Fewer warriors in each scene. Smaller fleets. Less celebration. You conquered yourselves into near extinction. And Queen Thessera is trying to prevent that from happening again. By weakening us further. Cathus slammed a fist against his armrest. By giving away our advantages to inferior races. By building something stronger than conquest. A network of species who choose to stand together. When the Chthoni expansion reaches this sector, and the projections say it will within 5 years, you will need allies. Not subjects. Not conquered territories that resent you. Actual allies who fight beside you because they want to, not because they have to. That got their attention. The Chthoni were a nightmare scenario for everyone. A hive mind species that converted captured populations into drones. No negotiation. No mercy. Just endless expansion. The human speaks of the Chthoni. Another council member said. Female, older, with a scar that ran across her eyes. What can your fragile species offer against such a threat? Innovation. Adaptability. We have something you don't, diversity of thought. Every human thinks differently, fights differently. We're chaotic and unpredictable. The Chthoni rely on pattern recognition. They struggle against enemies they cannot predict. I was improvising now, running on adrenaline and desperation. Your strength is in unity and power. Ours is in creative chaos. Together, we cover each other's weaknesses. The scarred council member tilted her head. An interesting argument. But it assumes we believe you would truly fight for us when the time comes. Test us. Give us one of those research stations near your contested border with the Rawl Collective. Let us prove we will defend it. Let us prove we are allies worth having. I hadn't cleared this with Chin. Hell, I hadn't cleared any of this with Chin. She was going to have me court-martialed. But the words kept coming, truth mixed with strategy, desperation wrapped in confidence. Queen Thessera stood. The entire chamber went silent. Lord Cathus, she said, you challenged my decision to grant humanity additional territories. You called it weakness. Do you maintain this position after hearing Marcus Webb speak? Cathus's mandibles worked silently. I could see the calculation behind his eyes. He had expected me to cower, to appeal to mercy, to confirm his beliefs about human weakness. Instead, I had argued strategy, offered verification, spoken in terms of strength and survival. I maintain, he said slowly, that generosity without testing is foolish. But the humans offer his merit. Let them defend a station. Let them prove their worth in blood before we trust them with more. And if they succeed, the queen pressed, then perhaps they are allies worth the investment. It wasn't a ringing endorsement, but it wasn't condemnation either. Other council members were nodding. The scarred woman was speaking quietly with her neighbors. The Queen's secondary hand spread, a gesture of conclusion. Then, it is decided. Humanity will establish their 5th research station at the Raw border. Marcus Webb will serve as official liaison. And this council will reconvene in 6 months to evaluate the success of this alliance. She sat down, dismissed me with a glance. I bowed, deep, respectful, and turned to leave. My legs were shaking. My heart was trying to escape my chest. But I walked steadily, head high, until I was through the doors. Then I collapsed against the wall and tried to remember how to breathe. A servant appeared, offering water. I drank it without tasting anything. You did well. The voice was the Queen's. She had followed me out, leaving her council to debate among themselves. Better than I hoped. I just volunteered humanity for a combat posting without authorization. Yes. And in doing so, you gave the hardliners a way to support Alliance without losing face. Cathus will tell his followers that we are testing the humans, making them prove their worth. The moderates will see it as partnership. Everyone gets to claim victory. Her mandibles clicked. You have political instincts, Marcus Webb. Wasted on analysis. I don't feel victorious. I feel like I'm going to throw up. That is the difference between warriors and politicians. Warriors feel triumph or defeat. Politicians feel sick and keep moving forward. She placed a hand on my shoulder, gentle, careful not to crush. 6 months. Prove that humanity can hold that station, and I can give you more. Trade routes. Technology exchanges. True partnership. And if we can't, then Cathus will have been right. And my position weakens further. She removed her hand. No pressure. That's not reassuring, Your Majesty. It is not meant to be. It is meant to be honest. She turned to go, then paused. Your ambassador is waiting in the diplomatic suite. She has been informed of your commitment. I suggest you prepare a very good explanation. The Queen walked away, leaving me alone with my exhaustion and my terror and the growing realization that I had just changed the trajectory of human-Valkyran relations. Also that I might be court-martialed. Chin was going to kill me. No, Chin was going to let Reeves kill me, which was worse. I pushed off the wall and headed for the diplomatic suite. Might as well face the firing squad. Chin was not, as it turned out, preparing to kill me. She was sitting on the couch in our suite with a glass of something amber, looking 20 years older than she had that morning. Sit down, Webb. I sat. Waited for the yelling. It didn't come. Instead, Chin took a long drink, set down her glass, and laughed. It was not a happy sound. Do you know what you've done? Committed us to a defensive position without authorization. Overstepped my authority by about 6 levels. Possibly violated the Diplomatic Protocol Treaty of 2243. You've done all that, yes. You've also secured us the most significant alliance opportunity in 30 years. Fleet Command is ecstatic. The Colonial Office is already drawing up expansion plans. The Secretary herself called to congratulate me on my brilliant negotiating strategy. Chen's smile was sharp. I have been ordered to fully support your liaison role, which means I cannot strangle you, much as I might want to. The relief was dizzying. So I'm not court-martialed? You're promoted. Provisional rank of cultural attaché, reporting directly to me. Congratulations. She poured another drink. Now comes the hard part. We actually have to deliver on your promises. The research station. Research station, defensive posting, proof that humanity can be trusted. All of it. Chen leaned forward. The Raw are aggressive. They've been testing Valkyran borders for years. Queen Thessera gave us a station in a hot zone deliberately. If we can't hold it, her enemies will use it to prove she was wrong about us. And if we can, then we become the first species in recorded history to establish a voluntary military alliance with the Valkyrans. Every other relationship they have is based on dominance or threat. This would be partnership. Actual partnership. Chen's expression softened slightly. You did well in there, Webb. I listened to the recording. The bit about creative chaos versus predictable power, that was inspired. That was desperation. That was diplomacy. Welcome to the career. She stood, walked to the window overlooking the Valkyran city below. Lights were coming on as evening approached, bioluminescent and beautiful. The Queen trusts you. I don't know why, and, frankly, I don't care. But we're going to use it. You'll be our primary contact with her council. You'll help design the defense strategy for the station. And, when the Rawl inevitably test us, you'll be there to make sure the Valkyrans see us bleed for something we believe in. My mouth was dry. You're sending me to the border? I'm sending you to the front line of the most important alliance humanity has ever attempted. Try not to die. It would reflect poorly on my leadership. Shin turned back to me. Get some rest. Tomorrow you start briefings with Fleet Command, Xenocultural Studies, and the Valkyran Military Liaison. You have 6 months to become an expert on raw combat tactics, Valkyran cooperation protocols, and exactly how to not get everyone killed. She dismissed me with a wave. I stumbled to my quarters in a daze. Commander Reeves was waiting outside my door. We need to talk, she said. Of course we did. Reeves's quarters were sparse. Weapons on the walls, ceremonial and functional. A single photograph of her family on Earth. Nothing else personal. She poured us both coffee without asking if I wanted any. You've made my job significantly harder, she said. I know. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Just understand the reality. She sat across from me, her scarred hands wrapped around her mug. The Rawl are not like the Valkyrans. No honor codes. No respect for strength. They see something they want, they take it. They've killed 3 Valkyran patrols in the past year. Not defeated, killed. No survivors. I felt cold despite the coffee. What do we have that can stand against them? Nothing if we fight them on their terms. They're raiders. Hit and run. They'll probe our defenses, find the weak spots, then strike fast and brutal. Reeves set down her mug. But we're not going to fight them on their terms. We're going to make them fight on ours. She pulled up a holographic display. The border region appeared, dotted with Valkyran stations and Rawl territory. 1 point glowed green. Our future posting. Station Koresh 3. Current designation, abandoned. Previous garrison pulled out after the 3rd Rawl raid. The Valkyrans couldn't hold it because they fought defensively, waited for attacks, responded with overwhelming force. Rawl just kept coming back. Reeves zoomed in. But we're not going to defend. We're going to hunt. Isn't that exactly what they expect? They expect defensive positions, fixed fortifications, us huddled behind barriers waiting to be tested. Her smile was predatory. Instead, we're going to turn the station into a base of operations. Small, mobile teams, constant patrols. Hit their supply lines before they can hit us. Make them react to us instead of the other way around. It made sense. Tactically, strategically, it aligned perfectly with what I had told the Valkyran Council about human adaptability and unpredictability. The Valkyrans won't understand that approach, I said. They'll see it as abandoning our position. Weakness. That's where you come in. You convince them it's strength. You explain that humans don't win by standing still and taking hits. We win by being where the enemy doesn't expect us. Reeves leaned back. Queen Thessera trusts you. Use that. Make her understand that our way of fighting is just as valid as theirs. And if I can't, then her council will interpret our tactics as cowardice. Cathis will use it to undermine her. And everything you built collapses. Reeves' expression was flat. No pressure. The Queen said the same thing. Smart woman. Terrifying, but smart. Reeves stood. You've got 6 months to prepare. I've got 6 months to train a strike team that can operate in raw territory without getting massacred. We'll both earn our pay. She walked me to the door, then paused. Webb, for what it's worth, what you did in that council chamber was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen. Maybe both. But it gave us a chance. Don't waste it. I promised I wouldn't. Then I went back to my quarters and collapsed on my bed, fully clothed, and stared at the ceiling until exhaustion dragged me under. I dreamed of Queen Thessara's scars, of council chambers and compound eyes, of the raw coming out of the darkness with teeth and claws and hunger. And I dreamed of the research station on the border, small and vulnerable and utterly essential. 6 months. 6 months to turn a promise into reality. 6 months to prove that humanity belonged in this alliance. 6 months to not get everyone killed. The countdown had already begun. The next 5 months were a blur of briefings, training sessions, and cultural exchanges that pushed me to my absolute limits. I learned Valkyrian combat philosophy from Lord Cathis himself, grudgingly offered lessons that felt more like tests than teaching. I studied raw raid patterns until I could predict their movements in my sleep. I worked with Reeves' strike team, learning just enough combat training to not be a complete liability in the field. But most importantly, I spent time with Queen Thessera. Once a week, she summoned me to her private chambers. We would drink Teresh and talk about politics, philosophy, the crushing weight of responsibility. She told me about her childhood, when Valkyrian culture was even more rigid, when strength meant only physical dominance. She spoke of watching her people slowly destroy themselves through endless cycles of challenge and conquest. I was not always as I am now, she said during our 14th meeting. I believed in the old ways once, thought mercy was weakness. Then I saw Queen Valessa show kindness to a defeated enemy, and that enemy became our strongest ally. It changed everything I understood about power. Is that why you fought for her? That is why I carry the guilt of her death. I saved her life, but took her purpose. I thought I could continue her vision, but the cost was her existence. Thessara's secondary hands clenched. I tell myself it was necessary, that she would have died in the challenge anyway. But late at night, I wonder if I stole her throne for my own ambition and simply convinced myself it was noble. I had no answer to that. Some questions lived in the space between truth and self-deception, too complex for easy resolution. The station launches next week, I said instead. Reeves says we're ready. Lord Cathis says you will fail within a month. He has wagered significant political capital on this belief. The Queen's mandibles clicked. Prove him wrong, Marcus Webb. Not for me. For what we are trying to build. No pressure, I said, echoing Reeves. Thessara's laugh was like distant thunder. You have learned our sense of humor. There may be hope for you yet. The week passed too quickly. Suddenly, it was launch day, and I was standing on the bridge of the transport ship Aurora, watching Station Koresh 3 grow larger in the view screen. Reeves stood beside me, calm and focused. Behind us, 32 specialists, the best humanity had to offer, prepared for deployment. Looks like a scrapyard, someone muttered. They weren't wrong. The station was battered, pockmarked with raw weapons fire, half its external lights dead. but the bones were sound. Valkyrian engineering was built to last. "Home sweet home," Reeves said. "Let's make it defensible." We docked, unpacked, set up operations with practiced efficiency. By the second day, we had patrol routes established. By the fourth, we had sensor nets deployed throughout the local space. By the seventh, we intercepted our first raw scout. Reeves's tactics worked perfectly. The scout ship expected fixed defenses, found mobile strike teams instead. We harried them across 3 systems before they retreated, confused and damaged. Word spread. The humans at Koresh 3 were aggressive, unpredictable, dangerous. The RAL responded by increasing their raids. Month 2 brought 3 separate attacks. We repelled all of them, but the cost was mounting. Equipment damage, injuries. 1 fatality, Lieutenant Chen, no relation to the ambassador, caught in an explosion during a counter-raid. I was there when we sent her body home. Stood in the cargo bay while Reeves said words about duty and sacrifice. Felt the weight of responsibility settle heavier on my shoulders. That night, I contacted Queen Thessera via secure channel. "We're holding," I told her. "But barely. Lord Cathus says you are doing more than holding. He says you are winning." She paused. "He says this with grudging respect. For him, that is practically worship. We lost someone yesterday." "I know. I sent condolences to her family. It is small comfort, but they should know that Valkyrians mourn alongside humans." Thessara's image flickered slightly. 3 months remain. The RAL will escalate. They cannot allow you to succeed. It would expose their weakness. Expect something desperate. She was right. Month 4 brought a coordinated assault on 3 fronts simultaneously. 15 RAL ships, more than they had committed to any single engagement in years. They were willing to take losses to prove we couldn't hold. Reeves split our forces, sent teams to intercept each group, turned the station itself into a mobile weapons platform, a trick the Valkyrians had never attempted because it seemed reckless. It was reckless. It was also brilliant. We caught the RAL between our strike teams and the station's guns, destroyed 6 of their ships, sent the rest running. But we paid for it. 8 wounded, 2 more dead. The station's hull integrity was at 60%. "We can't sustain this," I told Reeves after the battle. "One more attack like that and we're done. Then we make sure there isn't one more attack like that." She pulled up tactical displays. "The RAL command ship coordinates their raids from here, deep in their territory, supposedly safe. We're going to blow it up. That's insane. That's asymmetric warfare. They expect us to defend. We're going to strike at their heart instead." Reeves' smile was cold. "Trust me, Webb. This is what humans do. We don't win by being stronger. We win by being crazier than the other guy expects." It took 2 weeks to plan. Another week to execute. 6 ships, hand-picked crews, deep penetration into RAL space. The kind of operation that would be suicide if anything went wrong. Everything went wrong. We were detected 10 hours from the target. RAL defense fleet scrambled. We lost 2 ships in the running battle that followed. But the remaining 4 pushed through, drove hard for the command ship. I wasn't there. Reeves had forbidden it, citing my importance as liaison, but I listened to the comms traffic. Heard the chaos. The explosions. The calm voices of people who knew they might not come home. And then silence. For 6 minutes, nothing. Just static and my heartbeat. Then Reeves' voice, crackling through interference. Target destroyed. Withdrawing. 2 ships remaining. They limped back to Koresh 3 12 hours later. 14 personnel lost. Both surviving ships barely functional. But the RAL command ship was gone. And with it, their ability to coordinate large-scale raids. The attack stopped. Not immediately, but over the next 2 weeks, they dwindled to nothing. The RAL were reorganizing, regrouping, trying to figure out what had just happened to them. Month 6 arrived quietly, almost anticlimactic. We used the time to repair, to reinforce, to build the station into something truly defensible. Queen Thessera arrived on the final day of the 6th month, accompanied by her full council. Lord Cathus was with her. So was the scarred council member whose name I had learned was Lady Vorthis. They toured the station in silence, examined our defenses, reviewed our tactical logs, spoke with Riza's team. Finally, they assembled in the station's conference room, newly built, still smelling of fresh metal and paint, and faced me across a table. "You have held," Queen Thessera said, "for 6 months, against enemies who have defeated Valkyrian garrisons. You have not only held but thrived. Explain how this was accomplished." I looked at Reeves. She nodded. "We didn't fight like Valkyrians," I said. "We fought like humans. Not through superior strength, but through unpredictability, mobility, willingness to take risks that seemed insane. We turned our weakness, smaller ships, fewer resources, into an advantage by refusing to fight the way the enemy expected." Lord Cathus leaned forward. "You abandoned the station, left it vulnerable to attack while you pursued the enemy. We turned the station into a mobile asset instead of a fixed target. It's called adaptive defense. The principle is simple. Don't be where the enemy expects you to be. It is also called cowardice in Valkyrian culture. With respect, Lord Cathus, it's called winning." I met his eyes. "Your forces held this station 3 times. Each time, the RAL eventually overwhelmed you through attrition. They could predict your movements, your responses. We made ourselves unpredictable. And it worked." Silence. Then Lady Vorthis spoke. "The human speaks truth. Uncomfortable truth, but truth nonetheless. We have fought the RAL the same way for decades. Perhaps it is time to learn new methods." Cathus's mandibles clicked rapidly. Agitation, displeasure, but also consideration. The losses were significant. 16 personnel over 6 months. Reeves said, versus 34 that the Valkyrians lost holding this position for the same duration. Our casualty rate is half yours, and we eliminated a primary RAL command structure in the process. More silence. I could feel the weight of decision pressing down on the room. Then Queen Thessera stood. "I have made my determination. Humanity has proven its worth as allies. The alliance will continue. Research stations will be expanded to 15 locations. Technology sharing agreements will commence immediately. And Marcus Webb will be appointed as permanent liaison, with authority to coordinate joint military operations." I felt dizzy. 15 stations. Technology sharing. Joint military operations. This was beyond anything we had hoped for. Lord Cathus stood as well. "I maintain my objections to human methods, but I cannot deny their effectiveness. If this alliance proceeds, I insist on participating in cultural and tactical exchange programs. The Valkyrian military must understand these unpredictable strategies." That was as close to endorsement as we were going to get from him. Lady Vorthis added, "I propose a formal ceremony, a public acknowledgement of this alliance. Let all species in this sector see that Valkyrians and humans stand together." The Queen's mandibles spread in approval. "Agreed. We will hold the ceremony in 1 month on Valkyr Prime. Ambassador Chun, please ensure appropriate human representation." Chun, who had arrived yesterday to observe the final evaluation, nodded. "It will be our honor, Your Majesty." The meeting concluded. The council departed, and I was left standing in the conference room with Chun and Reeves, trying to process what had just happened. You did it, Chen said quietly. You actually did it. We did it, I corrected. All of us. Reeves put a hand on my shoulder. The hard part's over. Now comes the easy part, building a functioning alliance between two species who barely understand each other. What could go wrong? Everything, probably. But for the first time since this started, I felt like we had a chance. A real chance. The ceremony on Valkyr Prime was magnificent. 10,000 Valkyrans gathered in the ceremonial arena, their carapaces gleaming under the twin suns. Human delegates stood on the platform beside Queen Thessera, small and fragile and absolutely equal. The queen spoke first, her voice carrying across the assembled masses. Strength is not found in dominance alone. It is found in the courage to admit when another approach has value. Humanity has shown us this. They have stood beside us, bled for us, proven themselves worthy of respect. Today, we formally recognize them as allies. Not subjects. Not vassals. Allies. The crowd erupted. Not everyone was cheering. I could see pockets of resistance, nobles who still clung to the old ways, but the majority approved. The majority understood. Then it was my turn to speak. I stepped forward, looked out at thousands of compound eyes, and told the truth. 6 months ago, I stood before your queen and praised her strength. Today, I stand before all of you and say the same thing. Your strength is real, your power undeniable. But your greatest strength is the wisdom to recognize when partnership serves better than conquest. You have honored us with your trust. We will honor you with our loyalty. Simple words. Honest words. But they resonated. After the ceremony, Queen Thessera pulled me aside. You have changed my world, Marcus Webb. Not through grand gestures or political maneuvering. Through honesty. Through seeing strength where others saw weakness. Her secondary hands rested on my shoulders, a gesture I had learned meant deep respect. I have a question for you. Anything, Your Majesty. Why did you really volunteer for this assignment? The truth. I thought about the fear I had felt on that observation deck. The terror when she asked me to step forward. The desperate hope that understanding could bridge impossible divides. Because I was tired of being afraid. I said, because fear based on ignorance is easy, and I wanted something harder. Something true. The queen's mandibles clicked, amusement and approval and something deeper. Then you have found it. And in doing so, you have given both our species a future worth fighting for. She released me and walked away, leaving me standing in the arena as the crowds dispersed. Chin appeared at my side. Ready to go home? I looked up at the Valkyrian sky, purple and vast and filled with unfamiliar stars. This is home now, I said. At least partly. We built something here. Something that matters. Then I guess you're stuck with it. And with me. And with endless diplomatic functions and cultural exchanges and all the bureaucracy that comes with a historic alliance. I smiled. No pressure. Chin laughed. You keep using that phrase. I don't think it means what you think it means. Maybe it didn't. But 6 months ago, I had stepped forward when every instinct screamed to run. I had praised strength and been invited closer. And in that moment of frozen terror and desperate courage, I had helped build a bridge between species who had every reason to be enemies. Now we would walk across that bridge together. And maybe, just maybe, we would find that understanding was stronger than any armor, that wisdom outlasted conquest, and that the real measure of strength was knowing when to reach out instead of strike down. Queen Thessera had taught me that, and I would spend the rest of my career teaching it to everyone else. 2/2